when I would wake up in the morning and be stressed about how many emails I had to answer or stressed by how big my day was going to be or all these things, that's nothing compared to the Muay Thai I was doing every week. So having something like that you build into your week that's like, this is so much harder than everything else, it will make everything else seem easier.
The guys that are just total disasters / mess, they're in loser mode right now. And there's unfortunately a lot of them. In fact, the majority of men are in that stage. They're not financially there. Their physique sucks. You know, everything is just in the shitter. Women aren't taking a second look at them. Okay, this is very common. How do they balance all this education, but by also managing their already busy life?
Yeah.
Do you have any clients where you're just sometimes stumped, where you're like, man, you're just going to have to stop seeing your kid as much? Quit that second job. Like, do you ever have these hard conversations where you're like, this is such a priority for you because you're going to die that you're just going to have to stop some of the other stuff?
Shift work's a problem. Shift work's a big problem. Particularly like, you know, we both grew up in Perth, like FIFO guys, big like time, working up in the mines. So for people who don't fly in, fly out, very common in Western Australia because you can basically finish school, go get depending on your skill level, you can get a pretty cushy like supervisor job, or you can be underground, breathing in fumes, completely dysregulated circadian rhythm for 2-3 weeks away at a time. And you can make good money doing that. And a lot of the time guys will do it because that's how they can provide for their family, and they'll take that self-sacrificing role. And I have an enormous amount of respect for people who do that. I couldn't do it.
Either.
But the problem that I often speak to guys about is they'll be doing shift work, and maybe it's not that, maybe it's they're a paramedic or they're a cop or there's lots of roles that do shift work, nurses. And the situation that they're in is they're like, oh, I've got all these, not like massive problems, but they're like, oh, this is suboptimal and that's suboptimal. I'm like, it's because you're doing shift work. And they're like, well, what supplements and biohacks can I do to offset it? I'm like, well, when you get home, you can sleep with blackout blinds and you can take melatonin and you can make sure you get enough sunlight. But the Australian saying would be that's like pissing on a bushfire. Like you can offset some of it, and you can absolutely do some stuff that's going to make a significant difference. And some people can manage it really well, and some people can't. And if you're in a situation where you're like, hey, I'm doing everything I can, and I still just don't feel good, it's going, well, either continue feeling the way that you're feeling and do the shift work, or you need to get out of the shift work in order to feel better. And then they'll sometimes be in a situation being like, well, my skill set doesn't apply to anything that's not shift work. And I'm like, that's a problem. Well, I don't have a solution, but that's a problem. And that's where my ability to solve the problem ends, because I'm like, well, I don't have a solution for that. But that's a real issue, and that's a real problem. And sometimes the solution is that you can get better swings, or you can take a different role that maybe it could be a little less pay, or maybe if you work harder, you can move into a higher role that doesn't have the harsh swings. There's always a solution. It's just that the solution often takes a lot of work, or maybe the solution requires you to be at a higher level in some aspect than you're at the moment, and you have to work towards that. But that's been the thing that comes up the most in terms of answering that question is shift work, because I get guys doing shift work and their CRP is just jacked all the time. 5, 10, 15. Everything else is in order. Triglycerides is in order. Insulin sensitivity is good. They don't have any injuries. And it's like, yeah, that CRP is not going to go undetectable until you stop doing the shift work.
There's so many men out there that they're in a place where this modern environment, this competition, it's difficult. You've got the people like your Andrew Tates, your Wes Watson, they're out there. They're just kicking absolute ass. The only difference is now that these men are able to see it on social media, but so can the available women. Mm-hmm. So the available women now know there are options one Instagram message away. Mm-hmm. They're in Perth, for example. They're not necessarily limited to these men. They're like, I don't need to stick with this loser. I'll go to Dubai. I got the message. So it feels like it's gotten hyper competitive for men, easier for women. Is there a point at which you look at certain clients or people that you know, and I've had to have these conversations myself, where I've told him, bro, you just need to lower your standards in life. And it's a harsh conversation because I could be wrong. Who am I to tell someone not to try? But the certain women they're looking to get, the certain job aspirations, income aspirations, physique aspirations, there's a genetic limit to this for a lot of dudes. Now, for me, I've always had what I wanted. I'd love more, but I've always got what I wanted, the things, people around me that I want. What do you say to guys that you think are just maybe shooting for the stars, but they need to lower their standards?
Well, we often hear about the example of like the women who, I don't want to say anything too harsh, but let's say the women who are very physically unattractive, who believe that they're entitled to a man who's like the epitome of, the perfect embodiment of Giga Chad. I like to use as the funny meme kind of term for that. Like we often hear about that all the time. And I think that it goes both ways. I remember sitting down with my business mentor, who I was speaking about before, my first business mentor when I was doing digital marketing. And at the time I was basically in a role, doing like, this was like Facebook funnels back when the Pixel was first available. So like kind of right when there was like a social media boom first taking off. And I had a few clients and, I'd done a couple of nightclub launches and things were going kind of well. It was right before I had my brain injury. So, maybe things would have taken off, who knows? But I hated every second of it. I was just doing it because that was the thing I could do that made me the most money per hour. And that I hated the least. I didn't have to work underground in the coal mines to do it. I wouldn't have been able to do that. It was the thing that I could do that I hated the least that made me the most money per hour. So I was like, well, if I can do this, and I think I was probably billing out at maybe like $60-70 an hour doing digital creative work, which at the time was great. I would go, well, that means I can work half as much. And that means I can spend that time sleeping in and playing video games. And I was like, perfect. And that was a horrible mindset that I had, but that was where I was at in my early 20s. And I think a lot of guys are there. And I sat down and I was speaking to my business mentor, and I to this day, I don't know how much money he was making at the time, but he was doing well. Not crazy well, but he was doing well. He was doing much better than a guy in his mid-20s would be. And we were sitting on my balcony and he was at the point where he kept kind of pushing the boundary of burnout because he was working so hard on what he was doing, because he loved building like a digital online brand for himself and he loved his work. He was like, he was so good at Facebook ads and digital marketing. Like he understood it so intrinsically and it inspired like a lot of what I've done with my brand. But he like lived and breathed this. And I said to him, I wish that I loved something that made me money as much as you love what you do, because I loved playing music and playing video games. That didn't do shit for my financial career. So I basically had to go to work to suffer so that I could then enjoy my free time. And he was basically, and he said to me, he said, I love going to work and opening the Facebook ads manager as much as you love being on stage. And I was like, that is so fortunate for you. Yeah. I was like, that must be awesome. And he's like, it is. I didn't think I would ever find something that made me money that I enjoyed. Like I would do, and I say it all the time, and I often do it just accidentally when I'm talking to people. I would do what I do for free. Like I would have I'd have what I do in a consultation, I would do for free. I would have those conversations for free because I love doing it. I really enjoy it. I'm good at it, and it brings me fulfillment. So I am unbelievably, extraordinarily blessed, and I don't say, it's an earned privilege that I've gotten to a point where I love what I do, and what I do allows me to look after myself and my family. That is a blessing. Not everyone is going to be able to find that, and that's totally okay. And I think what you have to do in that situation, which is what I would have done had I not had the brain injury and fallen into this. And I also think that there is nothing wrong with the other pathway. And I think that a lot of the content around people in the make money, build personal brand spaces go, if you're not doing this, you're a loser. And I don't like that, because there are people who, and this is not a lesser option, this is a fantastic option, is that if you are working a role that puts a roof over your head, that provides for your family, that allows you to show up and do an honest day's work, and you don't hate it, and you can find something that you can get out of bed and go to and not dread, you have to find the fulfillment outside of your work. And that's in your hobbies, and that's in your spare time. So you have to optimize the 5 to 9. And if you're not optimizing if your 9 to 5 is something that has to put a roof over your head, and you need to find a way to get, satisfaction and enjoyment and fulfillment from something that doesn't earn you money, from hobbies like surfing or fishing or, whatever your thing is, There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different path. But it's one or the other, and you got to pick one. And if you want to optimize life for hobbies, if you want to optimize life for what you do outside of work, that is totally okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different path to life. And I think it's really fortunate that people can find a career that puts it, that they love working and they love what they do. But if you love surfing, or if you love, doing something in your hobbies and your free time, that is absolutely wonderful if you find that path in life. But you have to put the work into making that happen. And you have to optimize every hour of your spare time to make that viable. And you have to put the work into actually getting up and doing your hobbies, not just getting home at the end of the day, crashing on the couch, having some beers, doing nothing, because that will make you miserable.
If you've just started TRT, it is completely normal to feel overwhelmed and confused. There's a lot of new territory to cover, and there is a lot of conflicting information. I wrote TRT 101 so that you can have everything that you need to know in an instruction manual in one place that you can refer back to, that you can have all the questions answered before they even come up. TRT 101 is my best practice approach for TRT from start to finish, and it contains everything that you need to avoid all the challenges and pitfalls that I've seen come up in my clients over the last 5 years. You can check it out via the link below.
It's a reality check because you get on social media, and I see it a lot now too, because we'll talk about me. And by the way, this is what Dave does for free because you're here just because you want to be here, by the way. I'm not paying Dave. There's none of that going on. So he actually does what he says. So I see this on social media a lot. Everyone does. It's that you've got these lives to look up to, and it's even happening to me, all right? Even though I know it's happening, and I know it's a little bit of a falsehood, I want to have the best of both worlds, right? I'm in the opposite bucket now. So maybe you can therapy me. It's been that way for so long now, bro, years, but it just doesn't get any better. And I consulted with Dave, by the way, to have a child, which we have had successfully, 4 months old now. And I thought that this would cure it. It does for like 10% of the day. Can't spend all day with your kid, especially a newborn. It's a buffer. 10% is solved. So thank you, Dave, by the way.
Very welcome. 10%'s good.
But that other void of just being bored now. And I can't jump into business because like you were saying before, I honestly can't say that I do love business. I think I loved the results I got from business. But now that I have enough money to live for God knows how long, thank you, Bitcoin, when I mentioned Lucky, I don't know what to do with myself, bro. I'm telling you, this is no word of a lie how 99% of my day goes. I wake up in the morning, I do all the biology stuff. That takes a few hours. That gets it out of the way. See my daughter. But then there's this 8-hour period where I'm on X, refreshing the feed all day long on this YouTube rabbit hole, procrastinating, spending 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here, a little bit of macro here, getting nothing done that's fulfilling. It doesn't need to be productive for me anymore because what does that word even mean? I could be gardening or sewing, and as long as that brought me fulfillment, I'd be cool with that, right? Don't need any more money. But I'm just in this place where for years I just have not found it. I've tried so many things, bro, including this podcast, which I also stopped. And the reason I stopped it is because, it was just getting bored after a while, bro. There's only so many interesting people to talk to. Like, when you mentioned about small circle, like I'll chat to you, I'll chat to Broderick, a few others, but everyone else that wanted to come on the podcast, I was like, man, this person just doesn't seem interesting, even if they're popular. So I guess being a podcaster wasn't good for me because I'm not that social. This is a pretty interesting thing to start. So what would you say for guys like me? And I know you meet them like sort of, it's hard for me to say this stuff, like high net worth individuals, probably older guys, more older than me. What's left, bro?
The most important thing that we can do is to logically work out how to take action from how to get from where we are to where we want to be. And that's easier said than done when you're like, I want to be more masculine, or I want to be a better man, or I want to find purpose, or I want to live a life that I wake up and look forward to living. Like that's not an easy A to B to get to. If you said, hey, I want to put 40 kilos on my bench, okay, cool, progressive overload, work out a plan, easy. So back when I was doing digital marketing, again, we had this concept that I was taught called reverse engineering, which is basically you find the end goal of what you want, and then rather than working towards it, you work backwards. And that sometimes is easier because sometimes going from here to here doesn't make any sense, but going from here to here makes a lot of sense. And then if you've gone from here to here, sometimes it makes more sense to go from here to here. So there's multiple ways you can work out how to fill in this gap. But if you want to get up the cliff and you're down here, you have to work out how you can make steps to get up. And the easiest way to get up from here to here is to make the smallest possible steps. That's much easier than making kind of big climbs to big rapid steps. So there's two ways that I would look at reverse engineering this. And what I often do is I do this exercise where I visualize, and this is where manifestation actually becomes tangible and real. This is like real manifestation, which is when you visualize and you go, what is the version of myself who I would consider the best version of myself, which gets thrown around a lot, but the version of me that I would respect and the version of me that I would wake up as and look forward to my day, or at least just not hate the life that I'm living. What does that guy look like? How does he live? How does he dress? What's his morning routine? What time does he get up? What time does he eat? How does he take care of himself? How does he speak to other people? How does he speak to his girlfriend? All that kind of stuff. If you can visualize what that best version of you is, or the version of you that you would respect, and it's probably an amalgamation of 3 to 5 people that you look up to combined with, traits about yourself, and you make this ideal persona or construction of who you would like to be. And what you do is you start to adopt small traits or small habits or small actionable things that he does that you don't do, or you stop doing the shit that you do that he doesn't do. And you gradually over time, strategically, so you work out periods that you could do this, and you work out, well, what's the lowest hanging fruit, or what's got the highest ROI, or what's got the lowest barrier to entry that I could do. So maybe, and the one that I recommend people start with, which is the easiest thing to do, people massively underestimate it, is just go to bed and get up at the same time every day. Like, just do that. It doesn't have to be 4 a.m. Just go to bed and get up at the same time. Have a bedtime. Having a bedtime, there's a reason why parents give kids bedtimes. It's so important. So give yourself a fucking bedtime, and then you'll be able to create structure for everything else to take place. So that's what I would start with. And then the other things that I like to talk about, which is kind of like the Camino, for example, is look at things that you can do where if you achieved or overcame it, you would be a different person if you came out the other side. And one of the things that I really advocate guys do, because it made a huge difference in my life, and I wish I could continue doing it, but with my injuries, I can't. But when I moved to Lithuania, I said to my wife, I want to learn Muay Thai. And she was like, why do you want to learn Muay Thai? And I'm like, well, because of my balance issues, if I can learn to kick, then that's putting me in this situation where I have to learn how to balance without thinking about balancing. And that's like the last stage of rehab. That's like the ultimate stage of rehab. And I can't learn to surf in Lithuania because it's landlocked. Well, it's not landlocked, but the Baltic Sea doesn't really work for surfing. So anyway, she gave me the details of this Muay Thai gym, and I just rolled in, and I had never done a day of any martial arts in my life. And I was like a fish out of water. And I am still the worst Muay Thai fighter of all time. I'm like at the 4-week level after like multiple years because I can't balance. My hips are fucked. My back's fucked. I will never get any good at Muay Thai, but I still went every week for a good period, maybe the whole time I was living in Lithuania twice. So maybe like a year to 18 months probably. I went every week for a year and I sucked every single time I went. And I had a fantastic coach. His name's Don. He's going to watch this. And that for me was so valuable because I went and did something that I absolutely sucked at. I was in a supportive, nurturing environment where someone was teaching me combat and physical violence in a safe capacity, and in a situation where I could become very overloaded with stress because they're simulating violence. You know, you're still working with pads, but your brain doesn't really understand what's going on because it's a whole new environment. And you're physically exerting. I mean, with the amount of balance and back issues I had, I would just be sweating buckets. And if you can go and push yourself and do something like that just for the sake of doing it. Like, I'd never want to have a Muay Thai fight. I'm never going to get good at it. But just going and doing that thing every week, that was the hardest thing of my week. So when I would wake up in the morning and be stressed about how many emails I had to answer, or stressed by how big my day was going to be, or all these things, that's nothing compared to the Muay Thai I was doing every week. So having something like that you build into your week, that's like, this is so much harder than everything else, it will make everything else seem easier. And that's the whole point of it, just going and doing that. And if you can go, well, every week for the next 8 or 12 weeks, just set yourself a challenge. I'm going to go and do that. At the end of that period, regardless of what happens during those 12 hours over that 12 weeks, you will be a different person when you come out at the end of it, because it will change you in some way. The person who finishes that will be different than the person who hasn't done that. And that growth will be valuable from getting from here to here. So I think looking at things that you can do to go, I might not understand how or why or what the benefit from this will be, but I know it will be good for me. And I'm just going to apply and do the same things. And if you can go, okay, well, maybe if I learn to cook my own dinner every night and eat food that's healthy that I make for myself, maybe if I start doing that over time, that will really serve me. Or the other one I like guys to do to juxtapose the martial arts is, maybe if I practice mindfulness for 10 minutes every day and I sit down with my brain and look at all the dark parts of my brain that I don't like, and just sit down and look at it, and still with all of that shit swirling around and all these negative thoughts, if I can still find peace and stillness in that, maybe if I'm the guy who's practiced that every day for a long period of time, 6 months down the line, I'll be able to make better decisions. I'll be able to have better conversations when I'm stressed. I'll be able to navigate emotional conflicts with my partner better, so that I can actually get the outcome that we're both trying to achieve. And if you can program in and go, okay, I don't know how to get from here to here, but maybe if I start doing these things regularly, they will ultimately lead me to being more like that guy who I want to be like, who's just basically the metamorphosized version of you. You can do shit like that and do it strategically and stick to it, and not show it off on social media or so that you can tell your friends, but just do it for you. I think that's worthwhile.
Daily injections are ideal because this gives you ultra stable testosterone levels. If you can really frequently administer something with a very long half-life, you can keep your levels super, super stable. And I think that this is the most beneficial way to do TRT. However, how should TRT be administered? So TRT should be administered as frequently as possible to mimic natural production as closely as possible, to prevent supraphysiological peaks or low troughs with deficient androgen levels.